Most people look at a balance sheet and see a graveyard of numbers. But today, we're looking at a $5 billion crime scene, or maybe a masterpiece of strategic surgery. This is Polaris Inc. 2025. It's the year they decided to rip off the Band-Aid, throw away the sentimental baggage, and pivot toward a future that actually makes money. Welcome to the Strategic Reset. I'm from HDIN Research, and we're about to go behind the headline deficit. Okay, let's start with the holy crap moment. If you scrolled past their earnings report, you probably saw this. A massive, red, $466 million hole in their pocket. That's enough money to buy every single person in a mid-sized city a brand new ATV and still have change for lunch. But here's the kicker. While the paper profit was bleeding out, their actual bank account, the cash coming in from operations, shot up by 176%. That's $741 million in real, cold, hard cash. Polaris didn't lose a fortune. They just cleaned their room and threw away some very expensive trash. How do you go from a profit to a crater that size? It's not rocket science. It's just bad luck mixed with a breakup. Look at this waterfall. We started with a modest profit in 2024. Then, the government took a $100 million bite in tariffs. Think of that as a global trade tax for doing business in the wrong places. But the biggest chunk, a $330 million loss from selling off assets. It's like selling your old, high-maintenance sports car for a loss, just so you don't have to pay for the repairs anymore. It looks ugly today, but your wallet will thank you tomorrow. So what's the logic here? The situation was simple. Polaris was the king of the mountain, but was carrying too much heavy gear. The complication? Interest rates went up, meaning it became harder for regular folks to borrow money for toys. The question for management was, do we keep acting like everything is fine, or do we cut the dead weight? Their answer was a strategic reset. They decided to stop trying to be everything to everyone, and go back to being the best at what actually pays the bills. Now let's talk about the $5.7 billion elephant in the room, off-road vehicles. This isn't just a segment, it's the heartbeat of the company. 80% of their sales come from things that get muddy. While everyone else is worried about high-end luxury, Polaris realized that the people who actually use these things, farmers, workers, and weekend warriors, are the ones keeping the lights on. It's the boring business that wins. Check out the Ranger 500. While their competitors were busy chasing $30,000 luxury toys that no one can afford right now, Polaris went the other way. They focused on the value entry point. It's the Honda Civic of the dirt. And guess what? 70% of the people buying these are new to the brand. They're building a farm of loyal customers who will keep coming back for parts and service for the next 10 years. Even when the economy gets choppy, people still want to be on the water. Polaris owns the #1 spot in pontoons. Think of a Bennington boat as a floating living room. Sales actually grew by 7% here. Why? Because when you own the best brand, you don't have to fight a price war. You just provide the best lifestyle and let the margins take care of themselves. This is the part that hurts the sentimentalists, the exit from Indian Motorcycle. It's an icon, sure, but in business, icons that don't make money are just expensive hobbies. It was a strategic surgery. By cutting this out, Polaris stopped the bleeding and freed up cash to pay down debt. Sometimes you have to kill your darlings to save the kingdom. If you want to know if a company is about to explode in value, look at their stuff in the back room. Polaris did something brilliant. They starved the market. They cut their inventory across the board. Look at snowmobiles, down 43%. The dealers' floors are practically empty. Why is that good? Because in 2026, when those dealers need to restock, Polaris is going to have a line of trucks out the door. The empty floor is a goldmine. Here's the secret sauce: PG&A, parts, garments, and accessories. This is nearly $2 billion of sticky revenue. If you buy a Polaris, you buy a Polaris helmet, a Polaris winch, and you get it serviced at a Polaris dealer. It's a 26% chunk of their revenue that just keeps humming along, regardless of whether people are buying new vehicles or not. It's the razor and blade model, and Polaris owns the razor. Geopolitics isn't just for the news. It's a $108 million headache for Polaris. They got hit hard by tariffs on China-made parts. But instead of crying about it, they moved. They are aggressively migrating their supply chain to Mexico and Vietnam. It's a $100 million war to make sure they aren't vulnerable to the next trade tweet or policy shift. Where is the money coming from? 79% is the USA. But don't sleep on their international presence. They are global, but they are playing it smart, following international standards and building joint ventures in places like China to keep the footprint lean. They aren't trying to conquer the world, they're trying to own the most profitable parts of it. How do they stack up against the competition? Look at this radar. They spend more on R&D than the industry average. While others are just making dumb machines, Polaris is integrating 10-inch touchscreens and digital connectivity. They have 2,400 dealers in North America. That's a service network that Honda and BRP find very, very hard to beat. So what happens next? 2026 is where the magic happens. All that surgery from 2025? It's going to show up as pure profit. Without the motorcycle overhead and with dealers screaming for inventory, we're looking at massive EPS growth. 2025 was the year of the surgeon. 2026 is going to be the year of the sprinter. In short, Polaris is no longer a sentimental motorcycle company. It's a focused, high-margin cash machine. They took the hit, they cleared the deck, and they are ready to run. Cash is king, focus is profit, and their supply chain is now their shield. If you were worried about that $466 million loss, you were looking at the rearview mirror. We at HDIN Research are looking at the road ahead. If you want the full, unvarnished data behind this reset, or if you need custom market intelligence that cuts through the noise, you know where to find us. Visit HDINresearch.com or shoot an email to our sales team. Don't just watch the market, understand it. Thanks for watching.